Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I want to get started today talking about my mother. So in the previous video, I talked about how I believe that my mother has undiagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. So today I'm going to get into why I believe that she has this disorder. So stay tuned for the rest of the video. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what narcissistic personality disorder is, it's shortened NPD, so I will be referring to it as NPD in the video. And the resource that I'm going to be using is the Mayo Clinic. When I Googled narcissistic personality disorder when I was doing research for this video, I had that pop up at the very top of my search, so I feel like it's a pretty reputable source. So I'll put a link down below for those of you who want to pull up the website that I used so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And so what I did was I pulled up a list of the symptoms, and as I was reading some of these symptoms, I started to kind of think about stories that supported the idea that my mom has this disorder. So some of these symptoms I'm not going to delve into really deeply, but some of these symptoms I do have some stories that are associated with it that support the idea that my mother has this mental disorder. So I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to start reading symptoms. Some of them are symptoms that you can't really have a story for, but as you'll see as we get in further, there are a lot of symptoms. So I'm not sure clinically how many of these symptoms you have to be diagnosed with this, but I do feel like my mother fits the bill for many of these symptoms. So I'm just going to get right in and start reading them. And as we go, if you want to pull up that website and follow along, that way you can see where I am on the list. Okay, so at the very top of the list, the very first thing is having an exaggerated sense of self-importance. So anyone who knows my mother knows that that is definitely applicable to her. I don't have a specific story in mind to go with that one, but I'm just going to keep going, and when I hit on one that I do have a story on, we'll stop and discuss it. And I'll probably even put some pictures up maybe. Having a sense of entitlement and requiring constant excessive admiration. Number 3 on the list is expecting to be recognized as superior even without achievements that warrant it. That's definitely true for my mother. She doesn't have a college degree. She doesn't have a lot of notable achievements, but somehow she always seems to make it seem like she's a really highly successful person, even though she doesn't really have any data to back that up. So going along with that one, number 4 is exaggerating achievements and talents. My mother works as an executive assistant. Somehow she thinks that that's supposed to impress people. But the reason why I find that notable is not because I don't think that that's a noble profession, but my mother makes it seem as though this is a really coveted job. And but then in the same breath, while she'll be talking about how important her job is, when I ask, other people's names and, who in the office is that walking by, she usually says something like, oh, that's just the girl who works the front desk, or, that's so-and-so's secretary. She never really refers to other people with the same amount of importance that she puts on her own job, which I find kind of interesting because it's as though she thinks that her achievement is somehow notable and other people's is always downplayed. Being preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate. My mother's really obsessed with being successful in whatever she does, whether it has to do with her status in the Kingdom Hall, or the amount of money that she makes, or her intelligence, or how beautiful she is. I think that it's interesting that when she's talking about her children to other people within the congregation or outside the congregation, the only things that she mentions are kind of like a laundry list of things that she thinks are notable that we've achieved. So when my mother's discussing me, she always tells people that I have a high IQ. She always tells people that I have a college degree. She always tells people that, my husband is really successful in his job and he just got a promotion recently. So those are all things that they note when they're talking about me. But they curiously leave out my faults when they're talking about me to people. And I think that it's important to be realistic about your family members. If your children are not super successful, there's nothing wrong with being proud of them, but the picture that my parents paint of me is not really an accurate picture of who I am. And it's more just a list that they can tick off of things that I've done and not really about who I am. So that kind of has always bothered me. So the next thing on the list is believing that they're superior and can only associate with equally special people. So I think that that's interesting because my parents, my mother in particular, refuses to make friends with people that they consider poor or unimportant. They do not make friends with people within the congregation that are not able to financially reciprocate the kind of dinners and things like that my parents are able to afford. And my mother also does not make friends with the other assistants in her building. She doesn't make friends with the secretaries or other executive assistants at all. She only, when she's talking about her job, she only discusses her relationship with the executives, the CEOs, the CFOs. She always seems to upplay the relationship that she has with people of importance and downplays the relationships that she has with people who are not as important. And she seeks out people who have a lot more money than she does, have a lot more status than she does. So that is pretty interesting, I think. The next thing on the list is monopolizing conversations and belittling or looking down on people they perceive as inferior. I think that that's important because I was talking to some other people about my mother before when I was doing research for this video. And what I did was I asked them what qualities my mother has that bother them the most. What about my mother is the most, notable quality that she has? And one of the things that's at the top of my own list personally is how she treats waitstaff. I have so many stories of my mother acting inappropriately at restaurants. It's really kind of beyond belief how she treats waitstaff. She treats them as if they're lower class citizens, like they're there to serve her every demand. I can't remember the last time I was in a restaurant with my mother where she didn't find something to complain about. It's always like, the person who's waiting tables must be of lower intelligence or of lower class. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a waiter. And I completely disagree with that opinion, and I find it appalling the way my mother treats waitstaff. I have a couple of different stories of how she's treated waitstaff. All throughout my childhood, she was terrible to waiters and waitresses. But one that I think is really notable, and it was a pretty small instance, it was probably about 10 or 11 years ago when me and my husband were living in Amarillo. My middle sister and her husband were also living in Amarillo at the time, and my parents had come to visit us. Now, at the time, my oldest sister was on no contact with my mom. She was on no contact with her for 10 years. So this was during that time. So my mother had come to visit. Her and my dad and we went to a nice restaurant in Amarillo, Texas. And we sat down to eat dinner, and there were quite a few of us there. I think our table was 6 or 8 people. And so there was quite a lot going on. And at this particular restaurant, they serve you water in a wine glass and then also a wine glass. So, you know, if there's 6 people at the table, there's a dozen glasses on the table that all are very similar. And that doesn't include glasses for soda and tea and stuff like that. They brought everybody a water glass and a wine glass because we ordered bottles of wine for the table. And then on top of that, we also had soda glasses. So there is, you know, 15 glasses on the table, I would say, at least. So what happened was that the waiter had come around to our table, and we had a waiter who was filling, you know, our water glasses and soda and tea glasses. And then we were filling our own wine glasses from the bottle that was at the table. So they were refilling our glasses pretty quickly. You know, most wine glasses are 4 or 6 ounces or something like that. So, you know, when you're eating dinner and the food is spicy, you tend to drink quite a bit of water. So we were drinking water, and the waiter was coming around and filling all our glasses over and over and over again because they were such small glasses. And he missed a glass. He was filling all the water glasses, but he somehow managed to miss one of them because there were so many glasses on the table and plates and napkins and all kinds of stuff. It was a real busy table. And instead of piping up and raising her hand and saying, excuse me, you know, you forgot my glass. Is there any way I can get some more water? She kind of tucked it a little bit farther behind the glasses that she had. And she said kind of snidely, let's see how long it takes for him to notice that he didn't fill my glass. So even though she wanted more water, she wasn't willing to speak up. She was hoping that he would make a mistake and that she would be able to take it out of his tip. So that really rubbed me the wrong way. And that's kind of the attitude that she always takes. She always manages to find something wrong with her food or the service or something, anything. She always has like different things that she wants done to her food. She wants, you know, a customized order. You know, if it comes with chicken, she might want it with shrimp, or she doesn't like a particular item that's in her salad. She'll ask for it without, or extra of something, or swap something. So she's always customizing her food like that. So it tends to be a very complicated order, and she makes jokes about how her food is always messed up. But I mean, when you have a more complicated order, you know, if I order chicken Alfredo and that's just the way that it comes, that's a much more simple order than a customized salad. And that's the way that she always orders her food. And if somehow they manage to get the order correct, she will complain about the cooking time or the temperature of her food, or, you know, something's too hot or too cold, or too much of something or not enough of something, or she doesn't like the seasonings. If somehow her food manages to be perfect, which is very rare, she will complain about not having a straw, or not having enough napkins, or her silverware being dirty, or the attitude of the waiter or the waitress. I don't think that I've ever been to a restaurant with her where she didn't complain about something. And even if she didn't complain to the manager, which she does frequently, she will complain to the table. And she's not quiet about it. She's not shy about it. So that's something that's really important. She is very belittling. And that is just one instance. That's just one particular item of belittling people on a regular basis that I can think of. Let's see, what else? On that same note, monopolizing conversations, I think that that's important to talk about. I was talking to someone about my mother, and they said that it bothers them that she's always trying to steer the conversation. And if somehow she isn't capable of steering a particular conversation because she wants to be in control, she will very loudly sigh, complain. She may even storm out of the room if she doesn't understand the conversation. Something that I can think of, is that the degree that I have is in radiology, so it's a medical degree, and my husband holds a paramedic degree, and my mother-in-law holds a nursing degree. So we're all in a medical family, and we talk about medicine all the time. We talk about medical conditions all the time. And my mother is not medically inclined, so if she can't keep up with the conversation, she gets really frustrated. And since she can't monopolize the conversation and make it seem as though she's more intelligent than you, she would just rather not participate. And she makes it known that she's not participating. So that is another thing that she does. The next thing on the list is expecting special favors and unquestioning compliance with their expectations. My mother likes to get freebies. She loves it when people at restaurants give her money off of her ticket. She likes to complain about things everywhere we go in the hopes that she'll get something free or a refund or something like that. Unquestioning compliance. That was a really big thing when we were a kid. We weren't allowed to question her. We weren't allowed to ask why she wanted us to do something. We were expected to comply because she was the authority. And that really bothered me because I'm a pretty logical-minded person. That's the reason why my channel name is Literal Lefty, because I'm a very literal-minded person and I'm left-handed. And I'm very logical. So, you know, if you give me a reason for why you want me to do something or be a certain way, usually I'll be happy to comply because there's reasoning behind it. If it's just because you're on a power trip, I don't like to comply with that. But if you've got a valid reason, I'm happy to follow whatever instructions you give me. But I wasn't allowed to question her. I had to just do whatever she said. And she was like that all the time. I can't remember her giving us reasons for why she wanted us to do things. It was just, she would say you do it and you just hop up and do whatever she said, because you would risk her flying into a rage if you questioned why. The next thing on the list is taking advantage of others to get what you want. I'm sure she does that. I can't think of a particular instance right off the top of my head. Having an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. That's a real big one. She likes to play stupid in pretending that she doesn't understand other people's emotions. If you hurt her feelings, she makes a big show of the fact that you have slighted her somehow. But she will intentionally slight you and then pretend as though you're not allowed to be mad about it. There's a lot of stories that I can think of that she's done that to me personally. And there's several stories I can think of where she's done that to my husband and my mother-in-law too. But somehow she's always able to reason through her own reasons for, you know, mistreating people. But if someone mistreats her, there's hell to pay. She's out for blood if someone does something wrong to her. She doesn't like to let things go. She likes to bring up the past. And she likes apologies. She wants people to apologize to her for things. But she's not the apologizing type. She does not like to make verbal apologies. And so I'm going to keep going with this list, but I think that the video is getting a little bit long. So I think that I'm going to cut it right here, and I'm going to come back for a part 2. So stay tuned for the rest of the videos, okay?